and the calendar, invite with my name hidden in BCC. The invitation arrived like an apology that had hired a graphic designer. My phone blinked with the tidy certainty of calendar blue. Event, Chambers Lounge walkthrough. Time, 10:20 p.m. Location, Albion Hotel Mezzanine Bar. Under the details, a thing nobody expects to see if they aren't looking hard. BCC. James, my name tucked into the header like a rumor that trusted the wrong person. There was a note in the body that the system wasn't built to hold. If you still want the truth, come 30 minutes early. D. I take records for a living, stenotype in a courtroom with walls that know which way sound wants to travel. I can make language behave at 225 words a minute if everyone does their part. My hands memorize voices until the bench bangs once with something like mercy. Liam, the man I share rent and produce with, writes long profiles for magazines that like to pretend they're newspapers. 5 years in, we keep two heavy glasses by the sink because we learned early to pour before the sentence that changes a day. He'd come home after a pretrial hearing smelling like cedar and the last hour of a lobby that sells permission. The tie was off, the shirt open one notch beyond honest, a careful kiss on my jaw that remembered the coordinates and forgot the pressure. "There's a walkthrough tonight," he said. "Albion Hotel's mezzanine, some high-dollar donor drinks for the wrong foundation. I should put in an appearance. You could come if you want." He said it like an invitation that didn't expect a yes. He slept as if our bed had been redrawn by committee. The BCC in the header was not an accident. It was a confession that had decided to stand upright. There were a dozen Ds in our outer orbit, most of them harmless, a few of them decorative, exactly one of them dangerous. Damian Cortez, a defense attorney who cross-examines like he's peeling an orange with a violin bow, and who had once lifted his glass at me from the far end of a bar, as if he'd been offered the privilege of liking my face. I should have waited until morning and let our glasses do their job. Instead, I walked to the Albion in a coat that forgave my secrets. I like the city when it has errands that think they're fates. The mezzanine bar was lit like a memory that didn't need your permission, lamps that practiced restraint, the soft shyness of carpet meant to muffle money. The bartender filled water before anyone asked, which is the only kind of magic I still respect. I was early on purpose. Damien leaned against the brass rail as if posture were a career. He was taller than the newspapers let him be. His shirt had surrendered 2 buttons for reasons that would pass inspection. He smelled like cedar and the second hour of a lobby in which someone is being brave aloud. When he turned to look at me, he did it as if we had already agreed to have known each other for longer. "You came," he said, not like he'd won anything, but like gravity had remembered. "You sent me an invitation I wasn't supposed to see," I said, "because facts are my close friends. The header tried to keep you honest." He did not approach. He allowed the room to carry some of the distance. 2 glasses of water sweated on the small table by his elbow like decent intentions rehearsing. He slid one toward me. Our fingers brushed. Heat wrote a case brief at the edge of my palm. He stepped closer and stopped with an inch between his knuckles and my wrist. The inch had its own jurisdiction. He left it intact. "He thinks he's meeting me here after the tasting to end it politely," Damien said. "He promised the foundation officer he wouldn't make a scene near the orchids. I thought you should have the room first." "How long?" I asked, because arithmetic is clean when everything else starts auditioning for metaphor. 8 months, he said. He didn't give the number flourishes. "Started with rain and an elevator and a lobby that sells permission with carpet. I ended it twice. He sent me a photo of your breakfast with a complaint about my cross-exam notes. He respects my sentences more than my reasons." A couple at the end of the bar argued tenderly about whether ice counts as water. The pianist in the corner took a standard apart and put it back together with an alibi. I watched Damien watch my mouth and wondered how many men learn to love the thing that makes them credible. "You could have texted," I said. "I wanted a clean record," he said. "A room that knows how to hear without pretending to be a witness." The elevator opened with ceremony it hadn't earned. Liam stepped out in his docent face, the one that explains where light comes from as if he's paid by the verb. He saw me. He saw Damien. He saw the two glasses and the inch of air that had decided to be political. He closed the gap between us the way good reporters do, without asking permission but thinking about consequence. He closed the elevator doors with a thumb so that the room could have dignity. "Okay," he said, his voice doing its job without calling in favors. "You could have kept my name out of the header," I said. "You chose not to." "I chose incompetence," he said. He let the word be plain. "And then cowardice. I cheated. I told myself it was weather and that home is a noun that survives rain. I told myself your patience could be written off on my taxes. I told myself spark was structure. I don't want to hear me again." Damien had drifted toward the mural like oxygen needed a monitor. He raised his hand toward my neck, stopped at that inch, and lowered it as if returning a borrowed word. The restraint had the indecency of understanding and the mercy of form. "What do you want me to do?" Liam asked. He did not reach. Reaching is a contract wrists signed before brains read it. "You'll end it," I said. "You'll sleep on the couch we refuse to call a guest anything. Next week you'll tell me what this was twice. Once with your magazine voice that glosses bone, once with small words. I'll decide what my hands can hold without lying to my wrists." "I'll do that," he said. The bartender found something else to polish, and the pianist stopped trying to forgive the bridge. Damien exhaled. He came close enough for breath to draw a map along my jaw and set his mouth near my ear without touching. Warmth rearranged some furniture and left no mess. "Thank you for not making me a headline," he said. "We both would have believed you." He left at a pace that refused to be punctuation. Liam and I watched the ice melt in two competent glasses. The foundation officer pointed at the orchids like a metaphor had demanded evidence. I could hear the sentence about sparklers preparing its life. We didn't sit. Chairs turned posture into theater. "I'm not leaving tonight," I said. "We'll walk home without touching. We'll wait at crosswalks because other people's knees and our better natures both deserve seconds. You'll sleep on the couch. Tomorrow you'll end it without complimenting him. Next week you'll bring me small words." He nodded. He didn't cry. I still love him for that. The pianist shifted keys without warning and the night followed. The walk home let the city mind its own business. At the first corner, a cyclist shaved a radius too close, and Liam's hand rose in reflex. His palm hovered near my hip, offering me a mercy we could want and refuse in the same breath. I didn't lean. A man gets to choose the boring tool that keeps the lock from lying. At home, the kettle auditioned. We didn't cast it. He laid blankets on the couch with the neatness of someone who has learned that apology without geometry is theater. I slept like a device I wasn't ready to test. In the morning he came back from the lobby that sells permission smelling like nothing, the cologne adulthood should issue. He told me he had ended it. He told me twice. In magazine voice. The who, what, where, not too much why. In small words. He liked being two men because one of them wasn't tired. He had mistaken adrenaline for architecture. He could be one person if I let him do the work. I let him. That part never goes viral. He slept on the couch for 6 nights and learned the distance between our door and our bed like a route you don't brag about. On the 7th, he came to me without ceremony and remembered my mouth with the lazy precision we taught each other long ago and nearly lost. There is an erotics of restraint that doesn't announce its ticket price. There is a thrill in deciding not to ruin morning. 2 days later, Damien texted a single sentence. "Thank you for telling the truth in a room that thinks quiet is cosmetic." I replied, "Try it where nobody irons the napkins." He didn't respond, which was the second best thing he did. Work refused drama the next week and remained exact. A witness with a voice like gravel learned how to sit closer to the microphone. The court reporter in me wanted to hand him a glass of water and a better life. A young public defender whispered thank you in the stairwell because my record had preserved a hesitation the judge needed to hear. A juror cried in the bathroom because she'd been asked to be a scale, not a person. I pressed a palm towel into her hands and said nothing because sometimes silence takes better notes. On Thursday, Liam stood in my shop doorway, my little annex where I practice on a home machine that reminds my fingers what speed feels like, and held 2 takeout coffees like a Greek chorus trying for optimism. He set them down and put his phone face down on the table with a care that pretended not to be theater. He told me he'd pitched a story about attention instead of charisma. He told me he'd turned down an assignment because the source wanted to be flirted with. He didn't ask for a medal, the modesty helped. A week later, I saw Damien outside the courthouse watching a bus driver argue with a meter. He looked smaller. Maybe my anger had stopped needing him to be tall. He said hello without trying to own my afternoon. He did not smell like cedar. The space between us behaved. He left without auditioning for a moral. Here is the part people ruin with poetry. I wanted him. Not his life, not his reputation, him. I wanted the inch, the heat, the disciplined mercy of a hand that had learned where not to claim. I wanted to make a mistake elegant enough to narrate on the way home. I did not. Wanting is a sentence, not a command. Bodies vote. Ethics count. Boredom is mercy if it lets you like yourself at noon. Liam and I adjusted the frame. 2 glasses before 3 sentences. Less reach, better touch. We stopped letting the kettle set tone. At events, we stand near exits not because we plan to leave, but because rooms breathe better when doors aren't theirs. He keeps his phone face down like a man who has learned to curate attention rather than alibis. I schedule our days with a calendar that tells the truth and invites no strangers. If another invite arrives with my name tucked into a field that thinks it can keep a secret, I will bring water. I will sit where the exit is obvious and refuse to call that cowardice. If a hand lifts toward my neck, I will let the inch exist and answer in a tense I can carry past breakfast. I will keep choosing verbs that keep us possible. End, stay, tell, work, touch, wait. And when I set my fingers on the keys and listen to language try to outrun itself, when the judge clears his throat and law turns briefly into weather, I will remember the night the header told on us, and the way we declined a finale in favor of repair. And I will call that deliberate air the most difficult thing I know how to make, and the only thing that still holds when daylight forgets its lines.